Phil Hinton and welcome back to our continuing coverage from CES 2020. On Monday evening we joined Panasonic for the launch of the HZ2000 flagship OLED TV. There were a number of presenters there from the film and TV industry, as well as Dolby, introducing the Dolby Vision IQ system, and from the UHD Alliance was the Filmmaker Mode. So we caught up with Paul at the Panasonic stand to find out more about this new flagship TV. So I'm with Paul at the Panasonic stand, and we've known each other quite a number of years now, yet you've never stood in front of the camera, so welcome to the front of the camera.
Thank you, Phil.
So, new flagship OLED TV for this year. Tell us a bit about the differences between that and the GZ.
Well, we think the GZ was somewhat ahead of its time, so actually a lot of the best features of the GZ you're also going to find on the HZ. So things like the custom panel, which is delivering that extra 20% of brightness, plus the upward firing speakers built into the top of the set, all those things are still there. But on top of that, in order to deliver on our promise of delivering more Hollywood to more homes, we're also adding Dolby Vision IQ and also Filmmaker Mode with intelligent sensing, which allows users and viewers to enjoy better picture quality even in brightly lit rooms. Because research says actually 70% of consumers do actually have some ambient light on. So whereas content itself is actually graded in dark rooms, when you watch it in a slightly brighter room, your irises open up a little bit more, so you perceive it in a different way. So we're using Dolby Vision IQ and then also Filmmaker Mode of intelligent sensing to dynamically optimize that content so that you get a great perceptual match, so that it doesn't matter what type of content you're viewing, whether it's Dolby Vision or it's HLG or HDR10 Plus or HDR10, etc. It doesn't matter what you're watching. It doesn't matter what type of environment you're in. You're still going to get great picture quality without having to do an awful lot of messing around in the settings.
Now, it's one of these things that somebody like a stick in the mud like me for many years preaching that no, you should watch it in a dim room and so on. But if you're being realistic, the vast majority of consumers don't do that. So what is it that Dolby IQ and Filmmaker are doing that makes it still in line with the creator's intent?
Well, I think first of all, we still have all the other modes that we've had before, so like True Cinema, etc. So if you're a purist and you want to watch it in a completely black room, you're still going to be able to do that. What we're adding this time with Dolby Vision IQ and Filmmaker Mode are new picture modes, and we've gone the extra mile, especially with Filmmaker Mode of intelligent sensing, to make sure that the way that you're perceiving it, the way that it's been dynamically adjusted. We worked with two of the bigger Hollywood studios, with people from there, to make sure that what we were actually doing and the way that we're changing the signal, delivers a perceptual match to how it's supposed to look, even with a slightly brighter lit room. So, for instance, and it's also not the cat's eye feature of the Pasta, which I know, Phil, AV forums, you always recommend people to turn off, for instance. It's much more intelligent than what it did in the Pasta. So it's not only reading the ambient light itself, it's also reading the brightness of the content that's coming in, and then dynamically adjusting the gamma and some of the other settings in order to give you the best possible perceptual match.
Of course, what a lot of people won't realise is there is quite a bit of information already in the signal telling the TV what it is, so it's using that as well.
Yeah, it's using that signal, and it's just analysing everything that comes in, and then really, what it does in the bright scene and what it does in the dark scene is completely different. But the whole concept is that it doesn't matter whether it's a bright scene or a dark scene, whether in a light or a dark room, that you're going to get the best possible picture performance, that Hollywood level image quality, without having to do an awful lot of playing around with the settings.
One of the concerns some people did have and raised on the forums was that there's a couple of ways that you can get Filmmaker Mode to be active. One of those is metadata, the other is via the button.
Yes.
And people were concerned that they're going to be forced to watch in Filmmaker Mode, but that won't be the case, right?
No. For Panasonic, we're only implementing the button. So there'll be a button on the remote control with the Filmmaker Mode logo on it. You just need to press that and you can get it. You're not going to get pop-ups every few minutes, suggesting that you might change the mode. I think that's the better way to implement it. Yeah.
Okay, let's move back to the custom panel. Now, is it the same custom panel that was in the GZ, or is it different in any way?
Yeah, so it's the latest generation panel itself, to which we've added our own custom improvements. The way that we reduce the heat from the back to add the extra headroom, so that you have not only 20% higher peak brightness, but also 20% more average brightness as well. And I think that viewers are really going to enjoy how it looks, how HDR looks on that, because you've got the pure blacks, but of course you've got more brightness than anybody else, basically, who has an OLED panel. So, for the best possible experience with an OLED, not all OLED panels are the same anymore.
So when it comes to the panel, obviously it's a 2020 panel. You're doing your custom stuff. What custom stuff are you doing that you can tell us about that's not proprietary and so on?
Well, there's the stuff that we're doing at the back, as I say, to suck away the heat from the front, which is important. But also there's some other software stuff as well, which is kind of our secret sauce, which also helps us to deliver much more. And of course we're also building on some of the know-how we had from the plasma days, which has also got really hotter in order to deliver those improvements. So this is something that we think at Panasonic we have a lot of expertise and know-how how to do, and I think that we've proved it with the GZ, and I hope that customers are going to be just as happy with the HZ too.
And obviously getting rid of heat, you also minimise the risk of retention.
Well, I think any customer who uses a OLED TV in any kind of normal way is never going to experience the risk of retention. But as you say, because you're sucking more of the heat away, then that risk is even further minimised completely.
Yeah, and I reviewed all the TVs last year from Panasonic, and one of the things I noticed was the uniformity of the panels. Now, some panels from other manufacturers are not great. You see banding, you see strips and so on. Yet you had very clean panels. What's the reason for that?
Well, we go the extra mile to make sure that what we're delivering for our high-end televisions is the best possible, everything that you can get, so that our customers really can enjoy that true to the creator's intent, Hollywood to your home picture quality.
And is that a result of you speaking to LG Display and grading the panel so you get a better panel to put in the TV originally?
I think it's more about what we do in the factory in order to make sure that those little differences are minimised as much as possible.
Okay, so it's more what you're adding to the panel than actually buying them in?
Yes.
Yeah. Right, so that's the panel. We've talked about the new features in there. Audio-wise, again, you're doing Dolby Atmos with the upward-firing speakers. How did that go down last year with the GZ in terms of sales and so on, and has it gone the way you wanted it to go?
Yeah, actually the sales of the GZ were really good. Purists say that people at the high end don't need the audio systems because they already have their own. But actually we found there's definitely a market for a one-box solution, which includes not only great picture quality but also great sound qualities as well. And I think this, our concept of bringing these two upward-firing speakers at the top of the set, because they're that much closer to the ceiling, there's that much less distance for the sound to travel, so it has that much more energy to bounce back down and still create that great, immersive sound. So, I think that's really important, because I think most of the other makers tend to deliver Dolby Atmos using a soundbar solution, which is much lower. So, again, it's much further to the ceiling, and I think that actually has a big difference.
And one of the questions that keeps popping up on the forums is why doesn't Panasonic release a custom panelled OLED but without the bells and whistles, because I've got my own sound system?
Yeah, I think it's something we're going to keep looking at in the future, but unfortunately today I can't fulfil your dreams.
Another thing for New Year, new lineup of TVs, HDMI 2.1, I believe that you're now compatible there.
Yes, so last year we supported ALLM, and this year we're also adding eARC to that. So, and we're going to continue to deliver on that front, I think.
So moving on to the more enthusiast-based of our audience, they're going to want to know about upgrades in calibration controls and so on. So what have you added in for 2020?
Yeah, so for up until now, we had 12 calibration points, starting at 2.5%. So we're adding 2 below that, so at 0.5 and 1.3, which means that you can really control the roll-off from black to just above black, because an OLED, it can tend to stick a little bit. So you can really make sure that you're getting a very smooth, non-sticky roll-off from the blacks. And on top of that, especially requested by our partners in the studios and post-production, we're also adding hard clipping as well. Because of course, there's no standard for tone mapping, so everybody does it in a different way, which doesn't help the creators. So we're also including an option to turn off tone mapping, basically, to hard clip, which means that the set will follow PQ perfectly, and then clip when it gets to the the top end, which is what the studios it's the number one request, and we're delivering on that this year.
I guess end users wouldn't really find that useful, but it might be just from a an enthusiast perspective, just to see what the tone mapping actually does.
Yeah. I mean, to play around with it might be kind of interesting. But for studios, it's super important that they have they're able to replicate everything and have a controlled environment. So having that hard clipping, I think, is going to make a big difference for our partners in Hollywood and beyond who are involved in production and post-production.
And of course, your AutoCal from Carmen, you're still compatible with that. Any new features there?
Yeah, so for the first time on the Panasonic set, you're also going to be able to calibrate Dolby Vision for the first time. So I think that's also going to be great for lots of, especially AV Forums viewers. So I hope you'll enjoy that.
And one thing I've always wanted to work on an OLED screen, but up till now it just hasn't worked and that's black frame insertion, BFI, because of the frame rates that we use in Europe and the UK, it causes a hell of a lot of flicker, and a lot of the good side of that technology is lost. So what have you done to develop that?
Yeah, so we support BFI, black frame insertion, on the HZ2000, but also we've added some custom improvements to it. So actually, the set, based on the content it's playing, it's all optimize the size of the insertion frame. So it could be longer, it could be shorter, but it tries to find the sweet spot so that you reduce the flickering, but you still enjoy the best possible motion. So I think again, your viewers in AV Forums are going to enjoy that particular feature.
And one final thing, Paul, if consumers are going out and bought a HZ2000 last year and they're now hearing about these new features coming on the HZ, is there any way that their TVs are going to be updated?
Yeah, so unfortunately, some of the implementation relies on different hardware, so it's not going to be possible to bring this to GZ models through a firmware update.
And I guess that's just because technology moves on, doesn't it? And
exactly.
Silicon changes and so on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, every year we're and I think that's what customers want. They want us to keep pushing the boundaries. So yeah, sadly, it won't be bringing a firmware update to the GZ which will support these features.
Well, I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on the TV and testing it out this year. And thanks for your time, Paul.
Thank you very much, Phil. I'm glad to be in front of the camera for the first time.